when I got sick the second time, and we were doing all those tests, I had a liver scan, and my GI doctor called me up and said, "I'm really sorry to tell you this, but it looks like you have
primary
liver issue."
sclerosis, yeah.
Yeah, PSC. Of course, when I got off the phone, I did research on it and realized, oh, this is bad, because there's no treatment. I mean, this is, and there's no treatment, and all it is just sort of an unknown. You just watch to see what happens. Are you going to go downhill faster? Are you going to go downhill slower? Are you going to be kind of in the middle? I think that was when I had to struggle with, am I going to kind of go down into the depths of despair and feel sorry for myself and whatnot? Or am I going to sort of pick myself up, connect with my wife and my child, and then move forward to try to live the best life I can and accomplish the things that are important to me.
I am Dr. Larry Burchett, and as I see every day in the ER, life can change in a moment. Here on this show, we tell the stories that matter most, after which we are never the same. We've got quite a guest for you today. Dr. Jack Song, urgent care doctor and friend of mine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You're actually I think you're the guest that I've known the longest.
Yes.
On the show thus far. So we went to residency together. This was your second year, but my first year, and that was 2006.
13 years ago, we've known each other.
That's almost 14 years.
Yeah, a long time.
So we've been buddies since residency. There's some stories there. Maybe we'll get into them. I will say you were the mastermind behind my video application to The Bachelorette, as you remember. So I'm pretty sure that was a big reason why they picked me for that. So I have you to thank and to blame for that whole experience, Jack. Thanks. Welcome to the show,
actually,
you son of a...
You're right. Yeah. It didn't quite turn out the way we had hoped it would or envisioned.
How did we hope that was going to turn out?
I don't know, but not that, I guess.
I remember when we taped that whole video, and then I emailed it to them at, let's say, like 12:10 p.m. or just after noon, like 12:10 p.m. They called me at like 12:12, and they said,
no.
They did. No, they called me like not even 5 minutes later.
Really?
They go, oh my God, we just watched your video. No, that's not true. Because it was 9 minutes long. So it was like they watched it, and then it was like there was like 2 minutes. So if it was like 12:10, then they called me at like 12:25, like a minute. Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh my God, we saw your video. You have to come down for the finalist weekend.
I think that's a testament to your charisma.
You're trying
more
to
than
evade,
anything else.
Yeah, I think it was your editing that made a lot of that happen. So you're both to be thanked and to be blamed.
Yeah, well,
that's the
I'll
bottom
take
line.
no responsibility for anything that happened.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. I've interviewed you before. This was never really released, but when you went to, we're going to talk about something really big today with you.
Yeah.
But I interviewed you before a couple years ago when you went to northern Iraq and worked in this trauma hospital outside of Mosul, which was a big combat zone.
Yeah.
And that was such a great interview. I should go back and get that footage and have these guys edit it and turn something out of it. But I just remember being generally inspired with the way that you had made that decision to, take a month to take time apart from your wife and your newborn son, take time off from work, and put yourself in harm's way to. This is what I remember you saying at the time. I haven't forgot this, but you're like, if I really believe this stuff, in Christianity, and you wanted to kind of show the people of Iraq, that we're not all dropping bombs and George, and these presidents and all that. So you wanted to show those people that they're Americans that care. I think that was what you said.
Yeah, I did say that.
And I was like, wow, that guy's putting his money where his mouth is,
Yeah.
Got something to lose
Yeah.
with that, with your kid and with your wife. I really respected that. And you came back in one piece.
Yeah, I did. And I was nervous about going for a number of reasons. My job, it's not like there's time available to just do something like that. My wife initially was very, I guess frankly she was against it in the beginning for obvious reasons. She thought I was going to leave her a widow. My son wasn't even 2 at the time.
It's so intense.
And I was worried about my health, frankly speaking. Because
guts.
Yeah, because I had just had the prior year been out on disability for over 6 months, and had recently gotten back to full-time work when that opportunity came up. And so I was very worried that going to a foreign country, what would happen if I had a relapse or something like that.
What was you have ulcerative colitis?
I have ulcerative colitis, and
What is that? Explain what that is to the audience.
yeah, so ulcerative colitis is like an allergic reaction of your colon,
Your large intestine.
Yeah, your large intestine, your poop trap, I guess, where you store all your poop, and where it goes from one side all the way to the other side, and the whole colon, for unknown reasons still, kind of has this really bad allergic reaction where your own immune system sort of attacks it. And so you get these sort of ulcerations on the inside of your colon. You have lots of diarrhea. You have lots of really nasty, foul-smelling poop. You bleed. And before some of the more modern treatments, if you didn't get surgery when there was a terrible flare, you passed away from it.
Wow. So you have ulcerative colitis where your colon will get flared. Mm-hmm. You have these awful symptoms which sound gross. Let's be honest.
Very gross.
Debilitating.
It's debilitating. At my worst, I needed to go to the bathroom every hour. And when I would sit on the toilet, what would come out is just blood and mucus. It's really gross. Yeah, and so I couldn't work. I could, barely sort of kind of be around the house. I couldn't make any commitments because, there's no way that you can say, oh, I'm going to go here or go there or do this or do that. So the only thing that I could do was really stay home, spend time with my child as best as I could. And certainly my wife was there to, support me. But it was a really difficult sort of existence. And part of it was the fact that I felt like I was an invalid. Like all of a sudden I could not do anything. I couldn't function. I couldn't be productive. I couldn't contribute anything.
You were disabled.
Yeah, I was disabled. And you know, I was practically, literally disabled, and I was, you know, disabled from my job, and I was legally disabled. You know, I just couldn't work. I actually didn't know this, but, you know, when I look back, my ulcerative colitis symptoms started much earlier, except they were so mild that I didn't realize what it was. And it affected actually the course of my career in a way, because I got diagnosed with it in about 2012, 2013.
That's when you were diagnosed?
Officially diagnosed. Now, I had
so that was 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
So you were diagnosed a few years after residency?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I had
5 years.
symptoms even a decade prior.
Really?
Even longer, but they were very mild. And for example, one of the manifestations of my ulcerative colitis were what's called extracolon symptoms.
Like what?
Like joint pain. So for me, it was back pain. So I remember, because I started out in surgery residency, and I remember I had trouble standing there for the long cases because my back would hurt.
Low back.
My low back would just hurt and ache. And I thought, oh man, I gotta exercise and strengthen my back. I gotta take ibuprofen. I gotta do all this stuff.
Yeah. I would never think, I would just think it's occupational.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, strengthen your core
Absolutely.
and all these things. I would never think, do you have an underlying
Yeah.
autoimmune condition like ulcerative colitis?
And that's exactly what I thought. And that's one of the reasons why I felt like I couldn't stick around in surgery, because this was just torture. How can I, you know, be a general surgeon or a trauma surgeon and be there for cases that could last 5-6 hours and feel like, oh, my back is killing me, I'm getting numbness and tingling, I gotta go sit down.
How much did the back pain affect your decision? Like what percent of your 30%, 50%, most of the reason that you changed?
So back pain was a contributing factor. The other factor was diarrhea.
And did you have that during surgery residency?
I did.
Too?
But I just thought that was related to just kind of stuff that I ate, or sometimes if I got nervous or something like that. But there were times when I was scrubbed in where I felt like, oh, I needed to go. And it is kind of embarrassing to have to tell my attending and everyone, listen, I scrubbed out.
You got to hold it for hours.
I tried holding it,
and
it's not
who
going to work.
leaves the OR?
I left.
Excuse me, Dr. Smith. I'm going to hit the head. I'll be right back, and I'll hold that aorta for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, you know, I'm not the primary surgeon, right? I'm assisting. So I could do that. But, you know, my thoughts went to, well, what if I'm the guy? Then what am I going to do? Well, am I going to take a break every couple hours to go to the bathroom? And sometimes I would have to sit there for like 15, 20 minutes.
On the toilet.
Yeah. While I finish. And some poor dude is on the operating table under anesthesia waiting for me to come back. That just wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't. I didn't know this before. Yeah. So
and I didn't love surgery enough to like go through all of that as well. But
that's what I do
were
remember.
Contributing factors.
And so I want to tell people a little more about this. So when I say you and I went to residency together, you were a year ahead of me in family medicine residency. I did 3 years of family medicine. You did 2, right?
I did 2.
Because you had previous couple years of surgery residency or whatever it was.
So some of those credits we moved over, and I was able to finish family.
Because we did a lot of surgery at Martinez.
Yeah.
So you had the interesting story of you were a surgeon for a couple years, and then you switched and you became a primary care doctor.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just remember you didn't like surgery that much, and you switched. But I didn't know that this stuff had. Sounds like a significant.
It did have a significant. I mean,
thing to do with it.
If I didn't have that issue, I certainly enjoyed kind of the meticulous nature of the physical aspect of doing surgery. I really liked it.
You liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would have probably gone into some kind of surgical field. Maybe not maybe I wouldn't have stayed in general surgery, but
Yeah.
I would have gone into something. But it just wasn't practical given kind of how I was feeling at the time. And when especially my second year in surgery residency, when I was in clinic, I felt like I could do the clinic great. I was able to manage the clinic, see patients, get them in and out.
Breaks
and I could take breaks and do all this stuff. And so I told myself, oh, maybe this is what I should do, is go into something else. And that's kind of, it sort of led me to family. There were some other things there too, like I volunteered in Kenya for a month, and that sort of nudged me in that direction of family.
How did that nudge you in family?
Because when I went to volunteer there, I realized there was a bunch of medicine that I didn't know. And when I say that, I mean I didn't know about peds, I didn't know about OB, I didn't know about just general medicine, I didn't know about AIDS medicine. Mm-hmm. Like I have this general idea, what you learn in medical school, but I had no practical application knowledge. No, I took care of surgical patients fine. It was great. I did, I actually did surgeries. I did scopings, a lot of procedures. But there were times when I needed to take care of other patients, and I just didn't feel like I was competent to do that. And
as a surgeon, I mean, that makes sense. In general, you're a surgeon. Right. You're not a pediatrician or an internist that takes care of adults, or an OB that takes care of pregnant women.
Yeah.
Or a generalist or a family doctor that takes care of a little bit of everything. That makes sense.
But I felt like, oh, I could learn those things if I went into family practice, and it could be really useful, which was a start. So when I went back to Kenya in our when we were doing residency, so in my third year.
I remember you went back.
Yeah. I took a month of elective and went to Kenya and did the same thing at the same hospital. It was a very different experience. I was taking care of everything, including C-sections and delivering babies and all of the 9 yards.
Yeah.
And it was a fulfilling experience in the sense that I felt like I could generally help almost anyone that came through the door, and not just be relegated to kind of the small subset of illnesses.
Surgical patients.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You went to Kenya as a surgeon and didn't feel like you had the abilities and the skills. You go a couple years of family medicine residency, you come back, and really you've transformed into a doctor that can help more people, that can really take care of a broader range of sicker people. That's why I went to Martinez too. It was the same thing. It was like, I wanted to do Doctors Without Borders, go to Africa, and never come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when I went to Tanzania, the neighbor of Kenya, and I got out there, and I was a third year in family, so I had done all this stuff.
Yeah,
that
you were
did.
The same year I
that was our international month, and so I had enough experience and everything, but I got out there, and they didn't have a CAT scanner. They had labs, but never used them. They rarely used X-ray ulcer, and so much of the stuff was just people coming in with a cough. Well, most of the time here it's a cold. It's not a big deal. Maybe it's pneumonia or asthma or COPD, and but there it's like, what is this cough? Is this pneumonia? Is this like pneumocystis AIDS? Do they have? And I wasn't very good at diagnosing and treating things without technology. So I was like, I need to go to be. You and I had a similar idea. We wanted to help people, and I was like, if I really want to help people and be able to be good in Africa, I need to do ER. I need to be on the front line where sick people come in, and I know how to do it without all these tests. That's why I went into ER, and it was that instinct was so right. That made me a better doctor, where, like you're saying, you can go back and you can really offer something to that. I don't want to get too off track. I think there are a lot of interesting questions to ask you about this. Let's get back into ulcerative colitis. Didn't you think it was odd that you had diarrhea that much? When did that, when for you was that like a red flag where you're like, maybe something is, doesn't everybody break out of surgery and need to go to the bathroom?
Well, apparently not, as I found out later when I talked to some of my colleagues there. But nothing ever really hit me until after I finished family practice and I was living on my own, kind of working and kind of enjoying life, that something was wrong. And what was wrong was that I became incontinent.
What does that mean?
So that means that I would kind of poop in my pants every so often.
You would poop.
Not a lot, okay? Not every day or anything like that, but sometimes. And the thing about it was, the crazy thing about it is, okay, if you eat something spicy and you really got to go and you're incontinent, that's one thing, right? That maybe that happens to people.
Like irritable bowel syndrome. Some certain food triggers you to.
Yeah, but maybe that happens, more commonly. But for me, it was, I didn't even know it was happening until my underwear was wet and I felt it.
Oh, you didn't feel it going through you. You didn't feel like it's spasming.
Yeah.
You didn't, wow.
And so I was like, what is happening here? And again, it wasn't a lot. It was just kind of a little bit, but I was like, I'm in my 30s. This shouldn't be happening to me.
So that was what finally kind of brought you in. You had years of intermittent diarrhea, some back pain.
Right.
What did you tell yourself it was?
I just told myself it was just, I was getting old, or I lifted something heavy, or I slept wrong, or something like that.
It's funny, the story.
And I would take ibuprofen, I would take Tylenol, and
well, how did you explain your diarrhea?
I just thought I had irritable.
You just thought it was IBS.
IBS, yeah.
Now that you know the difference between ulcerative colitis and irritable bowel syndrome, how would you explain that to people?
So ulcerative colitis, so irritable bowel, you should not have blood, you should not be incontinent, you should not have a fever, you should not be losing weight.
Weight loss.
Yeah.
So it's more severe. Ulcerative colitis is much more severe.
Much more severe because the mechanism is completely different. Irritable bowel, it hurts, or you have cramps, or it's not comfortable, but you're not having any real physical changes. Versus me, there were times when I became anemic, and there were times when I lost a bunch of weight, and there were times when
you got sick.
Yeah.
I mean, this made you sick.
But so I knew there was something wrong, but I would say that was like 2009. From 2009 to 2012, I didn't have a diagnosis. I was kind of seeing some GIs, kind of doing this, kind of doing that.
Did they not scope you?
They scoped me. They said, "Oh, everything looks fine."
Really?
They tested me for
did they biopsy?
for celiac disease.
They did a scope and they biopsied and it was negative.
Yeah.
Wow.
They tested me for a couple other things. All of them came back normal, and so we didn't really have a diagnosis
of your incontinence.
Right. Until 2012, when I became when I started having black stool, and which is a sign that the bleeding is much more intense, and it's farther down the line of the colon. So if you have bleeding that's kind of close to the exit, it tends to be more red because it comes out quicker. But if you have inflammation that wraps all the way around to where the colon starts, that blood takes a long time to get to the exit, to empty out, and by the time it gets there, it's gonna turn black. So when I was having black stool for a while, we did another scope, they did another biopsy, and this time they saw inflammation that was consistent.
It was the second colonoscopy camera up through your bottom.
That was probably my third at that point.
I'm surprised that it took that many scopes. I felt like scopes were more definitive, and even if people weren't super sick, you would still see something on a biopsy that would diagnose that.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the early scopings, because the biopsies came back normal, the doctors were like, well, there's really nothing wrong with you, because that's the usual norm. But, you know, I had to be sort of persistent, but in one sense. But on the other hand, I didn't really have any choice, because my symptoms were progressively getting worse because I wasn't on any treatment. And so finally it got to the point where it was worse enough that it did show up on biopsy. And then we had a diagnosis.
What was it like? I mean, that was a period of years. And I want you to also talk about this, the experience of it. Now you're the patient.
Yeah.
You're a doctor that went to a patient. I've been a patient before.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What's that like? But also this period of uncertainty where you're like, because so many people say this, I've got something, and it's like, but your tests are negative. Were you like, am I crazy? What, you know, how does that feel?
Yeah, that was definitely an educational period for me. And what I think the big takeaway lesson for me during that time period is that, yes, medicine is not perfect. There isn't a way that you can do a test that's going to be accurate all the time.
100%.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. That's not how science and life works. But having said that, I can tell you the doctors that I met who, because a test comes back normal, completely dismisses everything that you say. It doesn't matter what you tell them. It doesn't matter what your symptoms are. I remember I was talking to the GI doctor, and they were like, oh yeah, everything came back normal, you're fine. I'm like, but I still have incontinence. You know what I mean? Like, but I still have this problem. So that's not gonna go away with, oh, everything's fine, I guess we can tell my colon, everything's fine, you can stop doing that. Like, that's not how it works either. So contrast that to the doctors that I met who, even though everything didn't seem like there was nothing wrong with me in terms of like the tests that we were doing, they still thought and considered and took my concerns seriously. At the very least, they considered it and kind of worked with me to say, you know, let's go ahead and follow up on this. Let's make a plan to follow up on this and keep you in the loop with us so that we can kind of see where this is going. And it made me feel like they care, and that my problem is not just simply dismissed as my problem, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And eventually, you know, finding out that I have a diagnosis didn't necessarily make me feel better or vindicated, but it did help me start treatment earlier, and you know, ultimately those are the doctors that I remember as being the ones who cared enough to treat me with respect.
I'm sure it felt validating at the time when you have negative testing to hear, I know you still have diarrhea, and this is an issue, and here's what we should do next. Sometimes the tests aren't 100%. Right now we don't see X, Y, and Z. Let's do this. Not the dismissive. I hear so much of the dismissive stuff. Tests are negative, you're fine. I'm thinking about this as an ER doctor. You know, like, how many times have people felt dismissed? Absolutely. I'm sure it's happened. Now I'm like thinking about this, and I'm like, man, I need to listen to this too. Today the tests are negative. Here's what we should do next. I know you're still having this symptom and this X, Y, and Z, and this is what I want you to do next for follow-up. See somebody else, get another opinion. Sometimes there isn't a lot more I can offer. You do need endoscopy. I can't do that here. We can't bring you into the hospital for that. This is the next step. I mean, I'm guilty of blowing people off for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
and I get it that, you know, it's difficult because sometimes you wonder, well, you know, is there some kind of secondary gain or something like that that you're trying to...
Sometimes there is other stuff going on.
And there is other
people do
stuff.
fake things.
Yeah,
And they do
right.
come in lying to my face because they want a
Yeah.
bed and a meal. So we haven't even gotten to your moment yet, and I do want to get there. But how did, along the lines of you kind of feeling dismissed and seeing doctors that didn't listen and kind of got rid of you after the tests were negative versus the ones that did and that cared more, how did that affect you as a doctor? Because you eventually you did get better and go back to work.
Yeah, yeah.
How did being a patient change you as a doctor? That's the question.
Sort of coincidentally during that time period where I was kind of going through all those tests, I had some classes that Kaiser sort of forced me to take. They sort of encourage all the new doctors to take. And
As a doctor, not as a
doctor,
patient.
Exactly. And it really changed my perspective, not just about the doctor-patient relationship, but about just relationship in general. And it was a course on empathy. And how to express it. So you have to do both. You have to first have empathy, where
What does that mean to you?
You care about what the other person is feeling. And it doesn't mean that you can fix their bad feeling. It simply means that you care about their feelings, what they're feeling at the time. And then the second part, and this is the part that I think I also have a lot of trouble with, is how to express the fact that you care. Because you can care all you want. If they don't know that you care, then it may not matter that much. And so to kind of find the vocabulary and as well as kind of the willingness to be vulnerable and
as the doctor,
to express empathy. When I was the patient, I realized how important that actually was. So it would have made a world of difference to me if, for example, in those early days when the tests came back normal, when they said, yeah, listen, all the tests came back normal, and you know, we can't find anything that's wrong. And my reaction to that was, yeah, but I still have all of these problems. Mm-hmm. It would have meant a lot to me if they stopped and said something to the effect of, wow, I'm really sorry about what you're going through. And it must be hard to have those symptoms. I mean, imagine how hard it is to have those symptoms where, you know, you might be pooping in your pants, or you can't go to certain things or do certain things or make commitments because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And to just acknowledge that, wow, you're going through, as a human being, you're going through a really difficult time. And yes, it doesn't solve the problem, but it actually helps me feel like they understand what my concern is, even if we can't fix it. Versus when I say, but I still have all these problems, some of the doctors, essentially what they said was, well, what do you want me to do about it?
Not my problem.
Right. Like, I've done all I can, and so now
Scope's
it's
negative, you're not
time
getting
to-
these meds.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
See you later.
But I can't move on. I don't want to, you know, pull them into my world, which is, I think, what we as physicians might be afraid of. Like, we're going to go down this rabbit hole of neediness, and we can't get out of it. But just the acknowledgement of, wow, this must be really difficult for you. I'm really sorry that you're going through this. Mm-hmm. And I've implemented that in my practice since then. I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah.
But before, I felt like either I had to try to fix whatever it is that they're coming in for, and if I don't fix it, then I gotta figure out a way to get them out without, you know, doing something that I don't want to do, or if it really becomes confrontational, kind of become the guy who says, what do you want me to do about it? I've done my job. get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. But instead, there's been so many times when I've sat there and I said, I'm really sorry what you're going through. And I know that I can't really do much to fix it, but I see how hard it is for you. And it doesn't take almost any time before they say something to the effect of, thank you, doctor, I really appreciate that. And then they're good and they leave. Knowing that, you know, they have this issue, I may not be the person to fix it, and they're not upset at me for not being able to fix it because they realize that I can't.
Yeah.
But we made this human connection where I see their suffering, I acknowledge it, and they appreciate the fact that somebody acknowledges and sees their suffering. And it has really changed the way that I interact with a patient. They're not just there for me to give them the treatment or the meds that I can give them, and if I can't give them anything, it's time to just move on. I try to, at the very least, even if I can't do anything at all for them, I try to at least acknowledge their suffering so that they know that somebody cares.
It's like I want you to be my doctor.
I am your doctor.
You are my doctor for a while. I want to say this. I think it's hard for us in those circumstances as doctors, number one, because we're expected to be able to fix everything. People expect that. And I think that's what we want too. That feels the best when you can actually help somebody and cure the disease and put the cast in a, you know, put the fracture in a cast, stitch up the laceration, fix the thing, treat the pneumonia. And when we can't do that, it's really easy to feel inadequate. What's wrong with me as a doctor? I can't fix this. Maybe I'm not smart enough. I don't have the right diagnosis, all this kind of thing. One way to like not even go there is just to be like, not my problem. You're not my problem. Like tests are negative, not my problem.
Yeah.
And you're so right about just the foundational importance of empathy like that. I'm going to listen to you talk about that. It's going to change the way that I practice too, really well.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes total sense that is one of the ways that your own illness and experience as a patient has changed you as a doctor, for sure.
Yeah. I know it fits in with the perspective you have about doctoring too, because I know that you've shared with me those stories where you're like, I can't do anything for this patient, but you have offered them things that are not necessarily sort of tangible, but I think in offering those things, they feel that, you know, he might not be able to treat the problem I have, but he cares for my suffering.
Yeah, you care.
And he's acknowledging me as a human and my needs. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Does make me want to be your patient.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants to be your patient now.
Are
you open for business? Can we find you on the internet?
No, I'm not open. I set some stuff up for you, and you never did it. You're a terrible patient. And then I haven't heard from you for like a couple years. I actually
have a new Kaiser doctor.
Oh, you do?
Well,
you moved on?
It wasn't me. They I don't know why. They just like, here's your new doctor. I was like, Jack's my doctor. Who's this guy? Like, I want Jack making me cough. Who's this guy?
I didn't know that. I didn't know we were through. Huh.
I've been meaning to tell you, maybe this isn't the best place our time. But if it makes you feel any better, I haven't seen that guy either.
Oh, really?
No. Oh. Why am I going to him?
Oh, that's good.
I'll order my labs my own. You're not going to order them. Somehow. Find somebody to order my labs. Okay, so ultimately, tell me if this is right. So you were sick for months on disability, really bad symptoms, couldn't work. Eventually, you got on Humira,
Yeah.
one of these biologic, God, are they
They're biologic
immune modulators, right? That's what they call them. So they target and calm down the part of your immune system that's attacking your large intestine.
Yeah.
And your symptoms get better.
Yeah.
When you got better, how good did that get? Normal? No diarrhea? No back pain?
No, it's not normal. It'll probably never be normal when, if I compare myself to someone who's never had it. But it's
you still
much
have
better.
Couple episodes of diarrhea per day is your best?
Couple episodes, a week now.
Oh, okay. That's way better.
Way better. Yeah.
And you're not incontinent.
No, right.
Your back isn't as bad. Your back, did you
And
notice your back get better?
Right. That's the amazing part is my back got better. I used to get costochondritis, pain in my sternum and my ribs.
Inflammation. You just have diffuse joint inflammation.
Exactly. All that extra sort of inflammation of my joints, it all went away.
You're making me paranoid at how many times I've probably missed somebody else who's come in with this, and I'm like, no, anti-inflammatory should be fine.
And you know what? I just reviewed a case where someone came in with Crohn's disease, very similar to ulcerative colitis.
Yeah.
And their primary reason for coming into the emergency room, palpitations. And they had
Myocarditis or something?
AV dissociation. When they calmed her,
when they got the Crohn's under control,
that went away.
the arrhythmia went away. So
Yeah.
you're suggesting that it was
And
an
they
autoimmune
diagnosed it as
mediated.
exactly extra gut sort of symptoms.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, right? Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's making me paranoid right now.
Yeah.
Gotta broaden the differentials.
You gotta be so smart to be a doctor. I mean, I can barely be a doctor, I feel like. When you review cases like that, you're like, what?
It really is the more you know, like the
Yeah.
more humble and realize you don't know, and it's,
Yeah.
wow. So you got on that Humira, that medication, you got way better, gained weight, went back to work, but then you had another flare. That one ran out of gas.
Yeah. So Humira stopped working, which all biologics tend to stop working at some point. How long you have, you don't know. They don't know.
Months.
There's
to
no
years,
way to tell.
Who knows?
Yeah. Some people will be on for years and years. Great. Other people, they'll be on it for a year or two and then it'll stop working. That was my case with Humira. And so I got better with Humira. I went to Iraq. I came back, and probably 9 months later, the Humira stopped working, and my symptoms came back with a vengeance.
Worse than the first time?
Worse than the first time.
Wow.
The incontinence was worse. The bleeding was worse. I lost a bunch of weight.
How long were you sick that time?
My symptoms
I remember when
escalated
you were
very
sick.
quickly over 2 weeks. And I went to the emergency room once. They put me on steroids, and then they changed me over to a different biologic medicine.
Did steroids help calm it down acutely? And then you
It
try to get
did.
off of them when you can?
It did help me calm down, but I had to be on the steroid for 2 months while we were making the transition.
Tapered off prednisone and switched.
And I gained a bunch of weight. I turned into my face was fatter than what it is now. And
I was going to say, I
got
remember
a
that.
gut.
But
I got a gut that now I can't get rid of. And yeah, it was, steroids are not great for you.
side
so,
effects. Yeah,
exactly.
long-term side effects.
I think probably that was my lowest point.
When
to
was
be
that? That was
honest.
a year ago?
That was, that was like the beginning of 2018.
Why was that?
So actually that was close to 2 years ago.
Why was that your lowest point? And I'm wondering if we're getting closer to your moment.
I think that was my lowest point because the hope that I had of, this medicine's, it's working. I'm kind of cured. I can get back to a normal life. And then to have that setback. And then to be on prednisone.
What did that feel like? that
Oh, it was
setback?
awful. It was probably the thing that made me feel hopeless. I knew in my mind, oh, it's not hopeless. We have other things that we're gonna try, etc.
But emotionally,
But emotionally, I felt hopeless because I had to revert back to what had happened before, and even worse this time, where I couldn't help my wife out. You know, I was barely capable of helping being there for my child.
How old was your
couldn't
son?
go out.
4?
At that point, he was 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, nearly 4. But so to revisit all of that and worse, to be on medicines that were really changing me, and you know, probably part of that was the medicines too, because prednisone does kind of mess with your mind a little bit.
How did it feel?
I was definitely
little
more
manic?
emotional.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like when I would see something sad, I would cry. When things were happy, it just magnified
your
my
emotions.
emotions. Yeah. And so when I felt down about my situation, I think I felt really down. It just felt hopeless.
The medication maybe enhanced that.
Yeah. But even if it didn't, it was difficult to go back to that place where you just feel like you're just kind of an invalid and you're no longer effective at doing anything. And it was nice. You know, people definitely cared. That was great. But I just sort of kind of felt like I need to pick myself up here. And if I get better, I need to kind of get together my sort of bucket list, you know, and I started making plans for, okay, well, it's obvious that you know, I have health issues. How much I can control my health, we're gonna have to see and evaluate that as things happen. But I can't just leave things to chance, like in the sense that, oh, well, all of the things that I kind of want to do or accomplish in my life, I'm going to wait till, you know, my son's off to college and, you know, I'm retired and then we can go on, or I can go and live. I can't do that because I don't know how long I have. Whether it's in the sense of how long I have in my life or in the sense of how long I have the ability to do what I want to do.
With your health.
With your health, yeah,
your
exactly.
ability. You may be alive, but
Yeah.
you may be disabled again and not able to
Right.
travel and do X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. And I actually didn't know how, I don't know, prescient, I guess, that thought was, because a short time later after that, I got a second diagnosis that is associated with some people who have ulcerative colitis, which is a condition that scars your liver. It's called primary sclerosing cholangitis. And it's just a long term for a condition where the immune system, the same immune system that's sort of causing all this inflammation, seems to be causing scarring of some of the ducts in your liver.
You have this.
I have that, yeah.
So you've got two things now.
I have two
You have
things,
your
yeah.
large intestine
Yeah.
flares up from
Yeah.
time to time and you're on medications for that. That's
Yeah.
ulcerative colitis. And now you found out that in addition to the large intestine thing, you've got a liver scarring condition.
Yeah. About 5% or less of people with ulcerative colitis get this problem. And the big issue with this problem is that there's no treatment for it. There's no cure for it.
Does Humira and Remicade, these things that you're on, slow or stop that? Oh, it
No,
doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything.
I would think that if it's the same mechanism
Yeah.
that treats the one, treats the other. No.
Yeah, and they found out it doesn't. It doesn't change the outcomes. So, and the most famous person who had this problem was Walter Payton. And I grew up in Chicago, so I remember.
Is this why he died?
This is why he died. Well, he died from one of the complications of this, which is that you are at high risk for developing biliary cholangiocarcinoma, which is a cancer of the bile ducts in your liver.
So you get liver scarring, and then you're at risk of getting a type of liver cancer, really.
Right. So he got diagnosed with it because he turned yellow, and they didn't know why. So he got diagnosed with it, yeah.
Obstructive jaundice.
Yeah. And then soon thereafter, they found out, oh, and he's already developed cancer. And it's a cancer where the survival rate is extremely low. So
It's one of the bad ones.
Yeah, if you get it, your chance of living is actually really grim.
Okay.
So I got this news in sort of short succession, and I was feeling kind of down, etc. And I had already sort of made up my mind that once I get the new medication and felt better, I need to start to work on the things that I wanted to accomplish in my life, because I had the thought that I don't know how long my life is, and I don't know how long I'll be able to do the things I wanted to do. And then I got the news that, oh, by the way, you have this scarring of your liver that doesn't have any treatment, and it's progressive. Now, how long it takes for that to happen?
Like inevitably progressive.
Exactly, inevitably progressive. Now, it can be a long time. So it can scar over 30 years, or it can scar over 5 years. And there's no way to really tell except to just monitor the scarring with MRIs, which I do every year.
And how's it looked so far?
So it's so far, and I've only gotten 2 scans, last year and this year, it's stable.
Meaning it's not progressing as far as you can tell.
Or it's progressing slowly. So
what does all this mean?
So it means that most likely at some point down the line, I'm gonna need a liver transplant. I don't know when I'm 60, when I'm 70, when I'm 50. No doctor can tell me because they don't know how to figure out how fast it's gonna scar.
How old are you?
I'm 47. So we just watch and we just wait. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting for kind of my liver to fail so that I can get a transplant, I hope that I dodge the cancer that is, if I get it, will probably kill me.
So now you've got 3 things. You've still got ulcerative colitis. Hopefully you'll stay good with that, but who knows? That medication might not work. You might get sick from this again. You've had it bad twice.
Yeah.
Now
Although there are other medicines that we will go on to if this one fails.
So eventually there's treatment for that.
And I hope that, medical science will continue to make more medications. I am actually a great beneficiary of all of the research that has been done, because the treatment I'm getting now for my ulcerative colitis and how much better my symptoms are, it's kind of a miracle in a way. But yeah, there are more treatments going on.
This is like the argument for research and for drug companies, right?
Kind of.
All the profit driving this stuff is probably what made that thing happen. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they have their uses.
They have their place.
Yeah, the place. So not only do you have that, but now you've got this scarring liver condition that we're watching, that you're saying your liver may fail in 5 to 30 years, plus you may get cancer. So are you going to die?
So I will eventually die, but I don't know how is the issue. But the focus, I've tried to take the focus off of, well, am I going to die in 5 years or 30 years? And tried to put the focus on, I know I'm going to die someday. I need to be deliberate about what I want to accomplish in this life. And I guess that's kind of the change that has happened for me since being sick, is that sort of mindset. It's changed from, well, when I retire, I'll do such and such. Or, when Jackson is in college, we'll do such and such. These things that I'm going to plan to do in the future. who knows if that will come about.
What are these things that you
I want to accomplish?
Yeah, that you would have been delaying, the bucket list, or these things that you now are more motivated and pressed to do?
So, one of the things, for example, is my wife and I, we had always talked about and planned that in the future, when maybe we retire or close to retirement, we would be serving overseas in clinics in Kenya or in places that have need, especially dire need.
Like a Peace Corps mission or something.
Yeah. Maybe it's time to bring that forward and decide, well, maybe we don't need that much in our 401k or retirement fund or whatever, and we can spend less time working now and more time serving others now or in the near future.
So you guys think about doing that?
So we're thinking about doing that. And it's a little complicated because we have a young son, but I don't think it's out the realm of possibility that we can bring him to.
Why is that important to you?
You mean in terms of his age?
No, doing that. You and your wife.
Doing that. Well, I think I think you've talked to me about this too, and this sounds familiar to me in the sense that we've had a conversation about this. You want to live out the values that you have. Mm-hmm. Maybe the life that you have doesn't feel like it's worthwhile because the things that you're doing now currently aren't aligned with the values you have. And it's great that I have a great job, a stable job, we live in a nice place, etc. But that's not all that we value. In fact, maybe that's only a small part of what we value. And maybe that's really only what we value partially for our son more than anything else. But I don't think there's anything wrong with also exposing him to what we think is important too. So,
what do you think is important?
So, sharing in other people's suffering and helping when we can, sacrificing our own needs or comforts to share in the suffering of others and hopefully lessen their suffering to some degree. Service, yeah. And making connections with other people. I think that makes life worthwhile. It's nice to have a nice bank account and a car, etc.
The comforts.
Mm-hmm. And the status that it might come with. Okay, those are all great. Those are all nice. But at the end of the day, I don't think that it is that meaningful. It doesn't create a satisfaction in your life. And certainly my wife and I, when we talk about it, we would feel like our lives are much more meaningful if we spent our capital, money, time, mm-hmm. effort, mm-hmm. etc., mm-hmm. into investing in other people, mm-hmm. Maybe even other people who may need it the most.
The world, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. The other things, for example, are I want to complete a Ironman triathlon.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I know. And
like for real? When's your training going to start? Have you started that training?
Well, I trained for it. What was it, last year? And then...
That stuff's long, bro.
I know, it's long. But I was like, you have all day. You start in the morning.
Have you ever run a 5K?
Yeah. I've run half marathons and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to train for it. I trained for it. It turned out to be a disaster anyway. I trained for it, and then I signed up for the Ironman in Nashville, Tennessee. And the reason why I signed up for it in Nashville, Tennessee... not Nashville. Chattanooga, Tennessee. the reason why I signed up for the Chattanooga Ironman is because they do it all over the U.S. and all over the world. But I signed up for Chattanooga.
Are you going to start with like a half Ironman or like
No,
a
this
quarter?
was the full one. This was the full one. I started my training in February. I worked my way up, and I was doing laps. I was running. I was cycling. I was doing all of it, and then I get to the race, and it was torrential rains.
Oh, you showed up at an Ironman race. You were ready to do it.
I was ready to do it. I took my family and everything, and we were all having fun.
Why didn't I know about this?
I don't know. We need to keep up.
When was this?
That was last year.
And what happened?
And so number one, the reason why I signed up for it is because this has the easiest swim. It's a river swim.
The easiest Ironman.
Easiest Ironman swim, because I felt the weakest in my swimming.
Okay.
So this one is a river.
This is the warmest part of it. Okay, good.
It's not in the open ocean. It's a river, and it's downstream. So I was like, oh, that's my jam right there.
I put my floaties on and Ironman my way.
I could totally swim downstream. So I was like, that's the one I would sign up in.
Back float.
And we arrived there, and then it was torrential rains the day before the Ironman. It swelled the river, so they canceled the swim part.
Oh.
Because it was just
too
much. Quick. Yeah, it was just too quick. So they said, okay,
Really
you'll still get the medal, but we're not going to do the swim part. And part of me was like, this sucks because I'm not in it for the medal. I don't want to technically go there. Yeah, I want to be able to finish the swim, finish the bike, and finish the run. And I was like, well, this totally is not my bucket list thing, but I paid for it. I'm going to do it anyway. Well, the night before the race, my wife says, hey, why don't we go to a Chinese restaurant? So we went to a Chinese buffet, and I'm not sure that this is the correct meal that you should have prior to going to an Ironman, right? So we eat there.
I want to look a little closer at your training regimen too. I don't know about that.
And then I woke up at 2 a.m. with diarrhea. And this isn't like diarrhea diarrhea. This is like, oh, I'm going to get a colonoscopy. Let me drink a gallon of Go Lightly diarrhea. So somewhere along the time that we were there, I picked up a virus.
Oh, it wasn't your guts?
Gastroenteritis.
It wasn't a flare?
No, it wasn't a flare.
Oh,
it was a virus.
Food poisoning.
Food, yeah.
Food poisoning from the Chinese food.
Something. But I literally had just straight water coming out of my butt, and I had to go to the bathroom basically every hour from 2 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't, you try to wake up at like 4:30, get ready, go do the swim, right? They didn't have that. You got up, an hour later, they said you can show up to start the bike, and I was still going. And I was standing on my bike, and I still went. I was standing on my bike ready to go when they were going to call us, and then I was like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. So I had to dismount, go to the bathroom, but it was disgusting. And then I get back on my bike and I go. I'm trying to hydrate as best I can. It's just impossible. And so by the time I got like 3/4 of the way around the 112 miles that you're supposed to bike.
So you still did it?
I still did.
You went 80 miles on a bike?
Yeah.
With the shit?
With this, yeah. So every stop that had a porta potty, I stopped, go to the bathroom, got back on.
How many times did you stop doing your Ironman?
It was a lot.
10, 20?
I stepped a lot. I mean, they had a porta potty like every 5 miles or something.
I'll tattoo
or 10
the
miles.
Ironman
That's
on
like
your-
at least 7, 8.
Tattoo Ironman on your cheeks.
No,
there.
it doesn't count. So that's what I had to do. And by the time I got to about 80 miles, I was like, I can't, because my muscles were cramping, I couldn't hydrate.
All right,
Everything was coming out.
I'll give you that's legit.
So then I stopped, and I had to get on the van of shame with everybody else who can't make it.
Quitters.
Yeah. And this is what I didn't know.
Man of shame.
So this Ironman has the easiest swim, but it has one of the hardest bike paths. It's all hill.
Hills.
All hill.
And there's several laps to it.
You do 2 laps, and most of it is going uphill, and then when you go downhill, you can't just coast down because of all the turns there are.
Oh.
You have to slow down,
control.
so you can't reap the benefits of being uphill.
It's a big
they make
energy
it that
expenditure.
way. Yeah.
I see.
So I'm gonna sign up for an Ironman at some point and train again, but it won't be that one.
You're insane.
Yeah.
You're insane.
But I just want to finish one. Is the thing.
But those are so ridiculous.
I know, and lots of people don't understand why I want to do it.
But your intestines.
Yeah, that's true.
If they're like normal, can you do it? If they're at your best, you think you can?
I feel like I could do it.
Do you really?
But at the very least, I want to.
How long did you train for this?
I trained for February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. 7 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. My wife was dubious, but at one point
So is
I
your
was
friend.
after work. I would go straight to the gym, swim, come back home, and she didn't see me a lot, but she was like, "Oh, I'm really impressed that you stuck it out."
So am I. Okay, what else is you're insane. So, and you've always kind of had a loose cannon like that. I remember when we had graduated, and then you came down to LA and just took that director's class for a month.
Yeah. I mean, that was on my list of things I wanted to do. I thought that was a perfect time to do it. I'm so glad that I took it. It was
came down, you did the whole director's class.
Yeah.
There was a period where you were going to buy a dermatology practice.
Yeah. That was
This is
great.
like my
that was
favorite.
awesome.
Like, what's Jack Song gonna cook up next in that brain of his?
6 months.
And then, this is my story of you. And then you started working for Kaiser, and this is the day that I thought you died. And you said, buddy, in 10 years, I'm gonna be the gold level retirement with Kaiser. Boy, I've got it made. And I was like, what happened to my friend? And who is this retirement-minded?
I got engaged. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
But I see your insanity is back.
Yeah, you think about those things when that happens, but, this was one of the things that really was impressive about my wife is that when I got sick, we had really deep conversations about, what's important? What do you want out of this? And I feel more than ever, we're in it together, and, she values my success, my personal success, and she values the things that are important, and she's very supportive. Now, she's very vocal about how she feels like, running an Ironman is ridiculous.
I can't believe she let you go to Iraq.
Or go to Iraq. But she herself will admit that all of these things that I sort of drag her through challenges her, and she becomes a better person.
Yeah, you guys have a good relationship.
Yeah.
I admired that.
And the same thing for her. I mean, she does things that I completely don't understand, and then she drags me through it, and I actually become a better person, and I kind of value what is important. Yeah.
An Iron Man. I can't get over that.
So I'm going to try again, and I'm going to keep trying it until I can't try it anymore. I finish it. I do it.
What is Jack going to come up with next?
I don't know.
What else is on your list?
But the other thing that's on my list is I would like to run the Amazing Race. That's been on my list, I don't know, for, 20 years maybe?
Why do you want to run the Amazing Race?
So the guy who started the Amazing Race, he did a race where people would race, I think, around an island or over an island. And I thought that was the greatest thing. I wanted to do that. That stopped. So there's no more of that. I don't even remember what it was called.
That was like a different show.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
It was and it would be on ESPN or it was on a sports show. It wasn't
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And then he created the Amazing Race, and I started watching it. and at first I scoffed at it because it's not like an endurance challenge. But then I really got into it, and it was something, for whatever reason, I said, that's something that I want to do. I don't necessarily even want to win. I want to be able to be one of the guys that just finishes the entire race, goes around the world.
You don't even know why. What was it that appealed to you?
I don't know. There's just something about that whole sense of like being there with a partner, working together, getting challenges done, like figuring out a way to be more efficiently, do a challenge and get to your next destination, and along the way, kind of cultivate a relationship or something along those lines. I mean, it just seems so interesting to me, fun.
Why don't you do it with your wife?
She doesn't want to be on TV at all. She does not like having her picture taken. She doesn't like anything like that. She doesn't want to be famous at all. In fact, she said, if you're going to do this thing with Larry and your face is going to be on YouTube, don't drag me into this. Don't say my name. Don't say our address. I don't want people coming to our house. Blah, 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 blah.
I'll put it in there. I'll put her name in the show notes.
Okay.
And her pictures.
Yeah, she has no interest in like being famous or being known or anything like that.
So who are you going to do the show with?
You! If you'll do it.
I'm in. You didn't have to say twice. I will say though, I imagined the thing was like going to be me like carrying you and your broken intestines like through the thing. But now hearing that you're like this Iron Man guy, it's going to be reversed. Like you're going to be
No.
let's do it. No. Let's go. And I'm like, Jack, I got to take a break. I got to rest a little bit. I'm tired.
No, don't let that fool you. I mean, I'm the slow Iron Man guy, like that takes the entire time to get to the end. So, I'm
impressed.
Admittedly,
though.
Oh, thank you. But admittedly, one of the reasons why I think you would be a good partner for me is because of the fact that I feel like you're more athletic, you're, physically, you're, better specimen than I am. Maybe. You're better looking.
5 foot.
You're more charming.
5 foot nothing.
I feel
100 nothing. I've got the Rudy genes for sure. So if you think that's athletic prowess,
I think so. I think you can make things happen.
I think our application just went down on the athletic basis.
I'm gonna ride your coattails a little bit.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Do you think you really might die in 5? We're going to wrap it up, but let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
I'd love to go on the Amazing Race with you. I think it'd be a lot of fun. We did apply for this before, years ago.
We did.
You remember what we did?
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we should mention what we did or not, but do you really think you're going to die in 5 years?
So I have to be willing to accept. I feel like you have to face the truth of the matter. Otherwise, what is the alternative? Like, you kind of set it aside, you kind of forget about it.
I mean, let me ask you, because you don't have cancer, you've got a condition where it's like, well, maybe my liver will fail sooner. It could be 5, could be 30 years. Well, 30 years, that's the average life expectancy.
Absolutely.
So like, there's part of it where anybody here listening to this could die tomorrow or in a year. Like, things can happen.
Yeah.
Yours is like an increased risk of that. I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
You could just be in denial about it. So could the rest of us.
Yeah.
It's probably how most of us do live.
Yeah. And at some point, I had to come to that conclusion. I'm like, okay, so where am I? I am at risk of dying, but that's where I was before. So do I have to change my life? Do I have to do anything differently? And I felt like I do have to do things differently because, maybe I'm in some ways like everyone else in the sense that at some point my life is going to end. But having conditions that sort of make you face that reality that you are not immortal.
I see.
Like facing the truth of that, I think then allows me to have sort of motivation and conviction to say, okay, then let's be deliberate about making a plan to align what's important to me, my values, with what I do every day. That does mean that I still have to go to work, but I don't have to go to work with an attitude of, oh, this is just a job. Let me just get through this day so I can go home and just take a break. I try to see work as an opportunity for me to exercise compassion and empathy. Because if I have to do it, I'm going to do it in a way that is consistent with the values I have, which is to try to help people who are suffering. And yeah, most of the people who come in, they're here for a broken bone or an ankle sprain, and they just want to have it fixed and they'll be on their way. I get that, no worries. But there are at least one or two people who I meet every day who are there. I fix their problem, but I also somehow connect with them to say something to the effect of, man, you're going through a lot now, or this must be very difficult for you. Or they've gone to several doctors and they feel like they haven't gotten an answer. And either I have given them an answer because I listened to what they're saying, or even if I couldn't help them, I at least listened to them. And more than once I've heard, even though I didn't do anything for them, I didn't solve their problem, more than once I've heard, I really appreciate your time. This is the first time I felt like anyone's listened to what I had to say. Mm-hmm. And that eases some of their burden in some ways. So yeah, making that deliberate, conscious decision to try to do that on an everyday basis, as well as trying to kind of make a plan to say, I'm not going to wait till later because I don't know what's going to happen later. Now, I'm not going to be irresponsible. I'm not going to blow all of our future, my son's future, and my wife's future on, stupid things now, just for the sake of doing it.
I mean, we could go to Vegas and have a good time, buddy.
that is true. But
live for today.
Yeah, it's not the total live for today because who knows what's going to happen. I'm trying to find that fine line of you want to be responsible, take care of the people you love, do all the things that you value, make a plan to try to check those boxes off of the things that, kind of like are sort of stupid in a way, but the things that I really want to accomplish in my life. I want to do it sooner than later.
Yeah, the things you want to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like everybody should live that way. You don't need this.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't need that. A potential death sentence to come to that.
Absolutely.
Realization.
I wish I had started sooner, but having said that, it is one of the blessings of having to face how being sick is coming out of it at the other end with determination to do something different.
All right, so Jack, I learned some things about you today.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I think I heard some things that are going to make me a better doctor.
Oh, that's good.
It's a great interview. Thanks for coming.
Glad. Yeah.
Why don't you close us out?
thank you very much for having me. I really appreciated the time to share my life. I felt like I was doing a lot of rambling. I don't know if I made any sense, but my hope for you at the end of the day, everyone who's watching, is that you are able to do the things that make your life meaningful. And I hope that you can do that soon. Yeah.
Good, perfect. Thank you for watching. I want you to take a screenshot or a video and post it on social media. Tag me in it. If you do that, I will comment on your post. Thanks for watching. If you know anybody that's got a story or you have a story, reach out to me on social media, Dr. Larry Burchett. And thank you for watching. We will see you next time.
So a year ago, it was actually almost exactly a year ago, the Woolsey fire came through Southern California, and it took everything that I had, my house, all my possessions, everything. So I had to transition